Thank you for giving me this space, and I hope it's you can still be focused for like 20, 25 minutes. So there is one question that I think all the people who are interested in academic freedom should ask themselves, is that why are they interested in academic freedom? Why do they think academic freedom is important? I think the answer is that academic freedom is instrumentally valuable to get closer or close to the truth. And this is particularly important because it means that you are defending academic freedom, especially when it comes to defending the academic freedom of people you profoundly disagree with. So if someone is into this debate in order to promote their own ideas and their own agenda, they're in it for the wrong reason. Because academic freedom is all about getting closer to the truth and not about promoting their own views. This is particularly relevant for me and for this project. I am one of the few people in this room who doesn't identify as a conservative or a right-wing person, always identified as a leftist person. But I had negative reaction to my work from both the left and the right, and I think it's a good sign. So I'm starting this together with Peter Singh and Jeff McMahon. We're starting the journal Controversial Ideas, which I'm going to explain in a few minutes. But I wanted to give you like a very brief introduction to why I got interested in academic freedom. And it's kind of a similar story to what other people had here. But I think that it should be a starting point to thinking about academic freedom as a final goal, not as an instrument to promote our own agenda. So I wrote this paper with Alberto Giubilini. It was published in Journal Medical Ethics. For people who are not familiar with it, it is one of the top journals in bioethics. It's peer-reviewed. And the paper was After Birth Abortion, Why Should the Baby Live? And it was tackling the issues about the difference between the moral status of fetuses and newborns. And so we said that all the arguments that say that it's permissible to have abortions should also be applied to newborns because they share the same moral status. So we concluded that since we think that abortion is morally permissible, also after-birth abortion, as we call it, or as other people said, infanticide should be permissible. I'm sure that a lot of people in this room disagree with that, but I can comfort you telling you that also a lot of people on the left disagree with it. So we managed to displease everybody. I mean, this was one of the reasons why we got into trouble was that, you know, the newspapers reporting the news were really portraying a faithful or accurate the description of the arguments. We didn't say at any point or even thought that it's okay to slaughter newborn babies. But this was kind of, you know, kids even, that this was the kind of headlines in the newspapers. It was 2012, by the way. And then we got a lot of emails, death threats from people getting really angry. Most of them were religious people that were telling me how they were gonna pray God to torture me and kill me in some horrible ways, which, you know, I'm not a religious person. I find that, you know, religion is all about forgiveness and be nice, but, you know, I didn't get much about this aspect of religion, probably. So this is like, I got hundreds of this. Thankful. Then I changed university, so that email account got deleted, so now people have to look for me. But some people do, and this is like an email from October. I had some other ones. So this is the person that emailed me like twice within like 3 minutes. And, you know, this is the kind of thing I get all the time. And at the beginning, these things are a bit scary, but then like they don't really affect you that much anymore. I mean, they're not pleasant, but what are you going to do about it? After the first 100, you start thinking, okay, well, they haven't killed me yet. They're probably not going to do that. Still alive. So then I started publishing articles about what I thought were new threats to academic freedom, as it was like this attack from the general public that now gets very much involved in a lot of specialist publications, like academic publications. So we didn't publish that article in a newspaper. That was published in a peer-reviewed top journal in the field. And somehow, some websites reported the news, and this ended up in the mailing list of I don't know, like conservative, hyper, I don't know what it was, but I get all that death threats. So I started thinking, okay, maybe there is a problem. There is a threat to academic freedom coming from the general public. We need to teach scientific journalists how to portray what actually is said in academic articles. So I started in this debate. There were some, and I also thought maybe we should allow people to publish anonymously, so that they can put forward their argument, but they don't have to deal with this issue of death threats and emails that I think to some people can be more worrisome than they were to me. Michael Tooley said, oh, well, maybe, editors of journals that receive papers they think are worth publishing should be able to send all these articles anonymously to a website where all these articles can be published without them taking responsibility about the publication. Because the problem with that article is that also the editors of the journals got death threats. Even the people we thanked in the footnotes got death threats in the acknowledgement. So like everybody got death threats, not just the authors. So I started thinking about that and then kept keeping an eye on what's going on. And then I think that the phenomena started changing. So I didn't really had a lot of negative, like there was no petition to get me fired. That didn't happen to me in 2012. If I had to write this article now, probably there would be. And I think things have changed quite a lot in these like 6-7 years. So like what happens to Rebecca Tuvell and Bruce Gilly and Nigel and Noah, and there has been a lot of going on, like people signing petition to have their colleagues fired or their article retracted. So that was an interesting new phenomenon that I did not observe originally. This is more recent, I think. So I talked to Peter Singer and Jeff McMahon. People in philosophy are probably more familiar with them. Peter Singer is at Princeton, and Jeff McMahon is here at Oxford. I thought, well, maybe we should do something about it. And we kept discussing it, and the idea was to start a new journal, the Journal Controversial Ideas, when people can publish articles pseudonymously or anonymously, probably pseudonymously, so that they can avoid this kind of threats coming both from the public, as I had experienced, but also from other colleagues, as other people in this room have experienced. Because, again, what matters the most is getting closer to the truth and then putting forward arguments that may be very important to getting closer to the truth without necessarily having to put the life or the career of a person at risk. So that's what we decided to do. So our understanding now is that threats to academic freedom come from two entities. So it's from the public that gets really angry when journals like The Sun publish articles like that, but also from other academics who seem to struggle to handle intellectual disagreement. And I can assure you that it's not just people on the left that struggle with handling disagreement. It's also people on the right who struggle with that. I mean, I can tell you, nobody in the right stood up to defend my academic freedom when I was publishing an article, or on the left. So there is a problem within academics with handling disagreement. But there are problems with suppressing the discussion of controversial ideas, because people say, okay, well, if people get upset by this argument, well, just avoid to put them forward at all. Well, on one hand, if you keep these arguments secret, it's not like they die and they disappear. They become something that people discuss in their own circle. And they don't really get feedback from people who disagreed with them because they don't feel brave enough to share them with other people. And so they become this enormous misunderstanding, especially if the idea they're discussing is wrong. Then you have people who hold crazy beliefs. And on the other hand, as I was saying, the moral and material progress of society really depends on people having academic freedom, on academics doing research on difficult questions. And a lot of times, you will find out that the answer to your question was wrong, or it's different what you thought, and then you have to change your mind, and then someone will come up with a better argument, and then we'll have to change your mind again. But this is how progress works. It's not by silencing people and say, yeah, well, no, I don't really like it, so you should shut up. Oh, so our concern is that with this problem of academics not feeling really comfortable about discussing their ideas, then we are missing on the opportunity of finding out something that is really relevant, really important for society. Like, I know from experience that people who worked on climate change used to get a lot of death threats like the one I receive. I constantly wonder, like, will we be in this situation with climate change if people have not been scared about working on climate change for so many years before? Probably not, maybe not. And when academics are intimidated by the fear of a media storm or by the reaction of their peers, they are not doing their job properly. And this applies both to researchers and journal editors. Like, our job is to ask difficult questions. If the questions are easy and the answers are easy, we're not doing it properly. So, questions, how would the journal controversial ideas work? Well, our goal is to provide people who are reluctant to confront a media storm or their colleagues with a platform where they can discuss their controversial ideas and get feedback, and then develop these ideas in a way that are useful to society. In the journal Controversial Ideas, the article can, but it's not necessary, can, if people want, be published pseudonymously. And the real name of the author can be disclosed later when the media storm has calmed down, for instance, or after they got tenure or retired. And we can also give them like a certificate if they want to claim that publication for a certain job application in which they feel comfortable about revealing the ownership of that paper. So there is not like a content in which you give up your right as an author. You still have the ownership of the paper in a sense. The journal will be neutral with respect to political, philosophical, religious, and social views. It was very interesting that a lot of people on the left criticizes for starting this journal, even though like the editors, all three of them, are people on the left. But we got a lot of support from people on the right. But in fact, we're not aiming at having like a politically oriented journal. This is a journal that discusses ideas. And they don't have to be politicized ideas. They have to be interesting ideas. So we have an editorial board which is really diverse, politically, socially. The background of the people in the board is very varied because we care about having this balance. There will be very tough peer review, blind peer review, and the review process will be particularly tough because we are aiming at publishing just one issue per year, and this means that only a few papers will make it, and the quality of that papers has to be very high. So the review process will be very tough. We are planning on publishing the comments of the reviewers because I think that's useful, and allowing people to also publish comments and responses to these articles. The journal will be open access, that's something we really care about, and we will avoid to have rich funders giving us money to publish the journal. Indeed, we'll have a fundraising, and so far we've paid all expenses out of our pocket, but we care about having this independent as something that came out before. So the journal will publish papers from all academic disciplines, but only if they're relevant to moral, political, economic, or social issues. So probably not much room for theoretical physics or something like that. It is something that has some impact on society. And we don't really interested in publishing papers that give information about something like dangerous, like creating a biological weapon in your house. That's not the kind of paper we're wanting to. Like, there is a limit to academic freedom in that sense. And I think another interesting goal is that we will help creating a map of what are considered controversial ideas in different parts of the world. Because a lot of the debate is what is controversial in the US or in Europe or in the UK. But you know, the world is much bigger, and there are things that are not considered controversial here, that are controversial in other countries, and we need to understand why. And it's very interesting to have an idea about how these controversies are mapped. So in the long run, I think that this journal will help promote a rational approach to controversial ideas. I think that people are in general scared of controversies. Controversies make us uncomfortable because they kind of challenge the status quo. And of course, people can have different opinions about what is controversial, but each of us has issues they consider controversial. So I think then the journal, since it will publish ideas that will appear to be controversial from people from different political views or religious views, will help people see that, oh, there is value in controversies, there is something valuable in it. There are interesting ideas that can stem from controversy, and with confronting yourself with people with different ideas. It also has an important, will have hopefully an impact on the situation with teaching and students, because it is true, it was said before, that students seem not to be really comfortable with being exposed to controversial ideas. But I think, as I always say to students, it's really important to learn to disagree gracefully. It is an important skill. Learn to disagree. You don't have to agree, but you have to learn how to disagree. And we need to show the media and the public that presenting controversial ideas is not our privilege, because we had a lot of comments, oh, you're in your ivory tower. Well, I'm not, because I've been just doing postdocs for 8 years. It's not really an ivory tower where I'm talking from. But the idea that academics are there and they have this life of privilege, which is true in a sense, but it is, it is a duty to go and poke those controversies, because we have to do it even when people will end up hating us, because that's how progress happens. There is no other way. I mean, if there were a better way to know the truth, I would probably go for it. But this is the only instrument we have. So we have sort of a duty to academic freedom as academics. So as I was saying, we hope that this journal will help improve the current situation in academia by highlighting the importance of a controversy for progress. And we hope it will help creating a more tolerant attitude toward controversy, especially in other journals. So if we publish the very controversial stuff, the mildly controversial stuff that is published in other journals maybe won't appear to be, by comparison, so controversial, so people won't get in that much trouble. And by introducing academics to a healthy and lively debate about ideas that are generally controversial, we will contribute, hopefully, to fostering a sense of appreciation to controversy and pave the way for a more fruitful public and academic debate. The final hope, on this last slide, is that we really hope this journal won't be necessary for a long time. We really hope that all these other goals will be met very quickly, that a few years into the publication of the journals, the climate changes, and that people don't have to fear about their career, about their personal life or inclusivity because they publish controversial stuff. We know this is not the final solution to the problem. We're discussing solution today. This is not the thing that will solve the problem of the crisis of academic freedom, but we think it's going to help. And that's it. Thank you.